What's up, guys? It is the first ever book club for Fire Finance Community. Woohoo! Alright, so this week we read Think and Grow Rich, the very first chapter that's called The Power of Thought. And I really love this chapter. It was so great. I'm super curious to hear what you guys think about each point that was made and the questions you guys came up with, because reading this just bubbled up so many different questions in my head. I'm going to give a quick intro about the intro that we read, and then I will dive right into the chapter. So Napoleon Hill, who wrote this book, was a badass. He was born very poor. He was orphaned at age 12. And at age 13, he started his writing career for the local newspaper. And out of that drive and curiosity, Hill became obsessed with how people become successful and also why people fail to become successful. He was given the task by this newspaper of interviewing financially successful men. One named Andrew Carnegie, who we all know, he went and interviewed him, and Andrew was like, "You're awesome, dude. Here's a job. Go interview these 500 financially successful men and write a book about it." So he started out on this journey and interviewed men like Thomas Edison, William H. Taft, Charles Schwab, John Rockefeller, all of these great guys, and came up with this book. So I'm going to dive in right to the first chapter, The Power of Thought. I'm going to do this quickly because I know we all have things to get back to, but please leave your comments and everything else down below. The first point he makes is about this dude named Edwin Barnes. Edwin Barnes really wanted to work with Thomas Edison, and it kind of sounds like to me like he was a little bit of a crazy stalker, but he probably not, because Edison ended up giving him the chance to work with him. This guy couldn't afford to get to where Edison was, so he ended up jumping on a freight train instead of a usual train that any of us would ride. So he jumped on this freight train, showed up at Edison's office, and was like, "Hey, I really want to work for you. Will you just give me a job, please?" And Edison was like, "You seem like the kind of crazy I like. Sure, I'll give you a job. But you're not going to work with me. You're going to work for me." So he started working in the office and had a great attitude the whole time. Loved it. Took a few years. Finally, he saw an opportunity that popped up. The Edisonphone had been invented, but was not selling well. So they needed someone to market this phone and try to sell it. And of course, Barnes was all about it. He was like, "Give me the opportunity. I will sell this phone." And he did. He crushed it and ended up working with Thomas Edison, and just became very successful over time. So this kind of popped in to my head after I read this. Like, what is a desire in you that's so strong that you would be willing to take a freight train to get there and then continue before seeing any results? Like, what is your passion? Like, what is your burning desire that you would work so hard at a job for years without seeing the results? And then how do you plan on getting to your success after doing this? So the next point, oh my gosh, this story is so good. So the next point is about gold. One of the most common causes of failure before quitting is quitting before not seeing success. So this guy named Mr. Darby had gone to California in the gold rush. He found a vein of gold. He had several investors give him money. He followed that vein and mined it until it stopped, and then he gave up. Him and his partner both did. They sold the machinery for a few $100s to this junk man and returned home with little profit. The junk man took this equipment, saw the mine, and hired an expert to come in and assess this mine. The expert found that they had stopped 3 feet short of where the vein of gold continued. So this junk man decided to put that knowledge to use and started drilling and made millions and millions of dollars continuing to mine this mine. So this made me think of, like, what's a time in your life where you have failed? Did you quit or did you try again? What have you learned from it? How will you use that knowledge to become successful now. So feel free to share. This made me think of a lot of things, but in order to save time, I will save them for a later discussion. The third and final point he makes in this chapter is persistence. Mr. Jarby saw a child come into the mill where he was working. And this is the same Mr. Jarby that was discussed earlier. So he was working at a mill now, and he saw this child come in and ask his uncle for 50 cents. She said her mama had her come down here, and her mama really needed it. And she was told to leave by Mr. Darby's uncle. And she responded, "Yes, sir." But she didn't move. And then they realized she was still there. And again, they asked her to leave, but she did not. And then the uncle walked toward her. It sounded like he was ready to give her a little bit of a beating. And she took a step towards him and said, "My mama needs that 50 cents," as loud as she could. And he stopped dead in his tracks, went in his pocket, pulled out 50 cents and gave it to her. Which is crazy. And then Hill goes on to continue to say that this book will give us the answer. So he's not going to give us the answer now as to why this made Mr. Darby's uncle stop dead in his tracks and pull out 50 cents. But he said this book will show us and give us the power to think and grow rich in 13 principles, which I'm very excited to dig into each principle because I love reading books that break things down bullet pointed like this because it's easy to then apply to life. And then having this group makes it easy for us to hold each other accountable, which will be very fun. So my question is for the third point is, have you ever seen this power? Can you explain what you think caused the reaction you saw? And then what do you think we're going to learn from this book overall? So I'm super stoked. I don't know about you guys, but just the first chapter really fired me up. I'm interested to get into these bullet points, these 13 principles, and see what's going to go down over the next 13 weeks and see how I can apply it in my life, and then hear how you guys are applying it in your lives. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next Sunday if you join in.